Okay, in this video I'm going to look at how we can create drawings in Inventor. So here I have a part I've modelled. I've used a block from the Silver CAD Academy, so you may have finished creating a model and you now need to put that into a drawing. Now in school we're not going to use the drawing templates that are available here because it's quite tricky to get them set up right, especially on your kind of networked computers. What we're going to do instead is we're going to open an existing drawing file that we've provided for you that's all set up with borders and all millimeters and other details, and then you're going to create copies of that each time you create a new drawing. So if you find the file on the classroom and download it, put it in your folders where you're keeping all your graphics files. I'm just leaving mine in the downloads folder for now. Once you've found it, open it, and the first thing you need to do before you make any changes is save it as the save it with a new name that's going to make sense with the part that you are putting on the drawing. So I'm going to call this Silver Block 6. It's really important that you name all your files when you're working in CAD sensibly, not just part 2, part 3 or whatever. Make sure that they've got sensible names so you can find them and you know what they are when you're looking for them. So change the name and then save that. Name changes up here. We know any changes we make to this will be only on the Silver Block version. It won't be on our original template file. So once we've got that done, the next thing we want to do is to make changes to the title block down here. So all these pages will have a title block on them, and we can change the text, and at some point you'll actually design your own title block. So to change that we need to obviously put things like a name, the date, the project in there, maybe add the scale. Over here in the feature tree we have got under sheet 1 we've got a school, that's the border which you can delete if you wish, and then underneath that we've got ISO, which is the name of the title block. If you right click you can go to edit definition, and then we enter into the sketch that this is created on. So these are just lines which you can change, we can move, we can change the sizes, and you can also right click on the text and edit that text. Remember we use block capitals for doing all the labelling on our drawings, so I'm going to call this one drawing. I call it Silver Block 6. There we go. Okay, that many other changes you want to add, like dates and things, and then finish and save edits. So that's now updated, that's changed. Okay, so we're now ready to drop our first view of our part into our drawing. The way to do that is by adding a base view. There's other sorts of views which we'll cover in other videos, but to begin with you're going to start with a base view. That's the first view, and we're going to use that to create other views from. If you can't see base view, make sure that the place views tab on the ribbon is at the front. I'm going to hit that, and you'll see that I've got a preview of a part just dropped in straight away. The reason for that is I've got a file open here. I've got two files open. If you have got files open, you can select them from here. I could select one or other of these two that I've got open here. If you don't, then you can navigate and find them through the folder menu there. So I've got that one open. We've got a few options on this pop-up menu. We can choose to have hidden lines shown or not. I'm going to leave it on. We can choose to have the view shaded or not shaded. Usually for orthographics, for the elevations, we'd leave it not shaded. Maybe we'll put in a isometric view that we'll shade later. You can take the name of the view if you want to. You don't have to touch that one. And also we've got the scale here which we can change. It usually drops it in a sensible one, but you can obviously modify that if you need to. So we're happy with that. Now we need to look at the view that is being dropped in. So it gives us to begin with the front view. So whatever you've created as the front view of your model will come up as the elevation. It may not be the view that you want to start off with. If that's the case, you can use the view cube here to spin your model around until you're happy with the view that you've got. So I actually want, I think, this view here. That'll make more sense than my elevation. End elevation will be the end, and then obviously my plan will be above it. So once you're happy with the first view, you can move your mouse to one side and you can add other views in if you want to. I'm going to add two views here, and I'm also going to add an isometric view up there. So you come off the corners, you get the view. If I come down this one here, I'm going to get a view from the bottom corner. If you're happy with that, you can press OK, and it will create those views. Okay, so next thing one we might want to look at is obviously moving it around. So we can move the base view or move all of them. If you move the projected views, you can only go in line, so you can align them. I'm going to bring one over here a little bit more, and I'm just going to delete that one for the minute. So I'm just select a view. You can delete views if you don't want them anymore. If we want to change these views, so the scale, for example, we can double click them when we get this box up. We can change the scale. We can also change the view of the elevation, the view of the elevation that we've got. If we choose to do that, we have to then update the other ones. Obviously, I don't think that's a very good idea for me, but nothing's kind of fixed. That's the point I'm trying to make. You can go back and you can change things if you want to. It's really important that you do use the projected views so that they're in line. Don't be tempted to put lots of single views in. So there's an elevation. There is maybe we'll do this one here. There's a view from there. That's not how we construct drawings. Okay, they're not necessarily the right way around, and they're certainly not in line. So make sure that you use the views, the projected views. If I want to add another view here, so I deleted my isometric, I'm going to go back and put that back in, hit the projected view, click on the view you want, and then you can add views to it. In this instance, you need to right click and press create. So we can move views around, we can go back and edit the direction that the view is looking at. We can also add more projected views to our model. This one here I think is a bit big, so I'm going to double click that. I'm going to change the scale, not that small, that one, and I'm also going to make it shaded, and I'm going to press OK. That just gives us an idea of what the object's supposed to look like. Okay, next thing we want to do is to label our views. So if I go to the annotate menu here, we can add text. So all you need to do is click where you want the text and then type in the contents of the text you want, remembering that we use block capitals for our labels on our drawings, and I'm going to just label this view here as well. Okay, if you want to move them, then you can hover over and get this little move icon and drag them about. If the box is too short and it's gone into two lines, then you can just click and drag it out and it'll fit it in again. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for now. Next we're going to have a look at how we can add dimensions and other annotations. Okay, so now we're ready to add some dimensions to our drawings and centre lines. You may notice that I just added an extra hole here on the part, and you'll see why that shortly. So first off, dimensions, very simple. We're going to pick up dimension tool here. There are other options, but we'll not really run with them for now. All you do is select the dimension tool, select a line, click it, move away, and then choose where you want to place your dimension. So it gives you that already. Vertical lines are the same. Click the line, move away, choose where to place it. You'll see it actually kind of goes to a little dotted line at certain spaces. So if you're trying to arrange your numerous dimensions in line or space them evenly, it kind of helps you just to do that. You can also add, so if I wanted to put a size between these two lines here, I can't select the top line because of this chamfer. So you can also choose corners or points like that, or you can do lines like this that are parallel, and it will give you a line there. I'm not going to cover how you make sure your drawing is dimensioned properly. I'm just showing you how to drop them in. So circles, so I've got a circle here, it goes right through. So again, if I choose the dimension tool, click on a curve, so an arc or a circle, it will drop in the size. It will automatically give you a radius for an arc or a diameter for a circle. This feature here is called a chamfer. How do I dimension that? Well, I can use the chamfer dimension feature. If I click on the sloping part of the chamfer, and then on one or other of the sides that it's breaking into, and it gives me the correct dimensions for that chamfer. Okay, so looking at this hole here, we could do this hole in two ways. We could put a dimension, the diameter, and then we could dimension the depth of the hole here. Okay, that's one way of doing it. The other way we could do it is we could put a hole note on it. So if you've created it as a hole, then you can use this here, which is useful for holes and also threads, which I'll look at later. If I drop that one on there, it gives both bits of those information in one go. So it tells me it's a diameter 10 and it's 15 deep. So it's up to you whether you want to do that or whether you want to put the 2 dimensions as I showed previously. Okay, so that's my dimensions for the moment. What I need now is to add my center lines and center marks. So starting with center marks, we've got this button here which is going to allow us to drop a center mark onto any curve. So any cylinder, any circle or arc, we can drop that on and it will give us a center mark. Center lines that we've got to put down these other shapes here that are cylinders. We're going to use this one here, which is a center line bisector, and what that allows us to do is to select the outside edges of the cylinder and it drops the line in the middle. Most of the time you can use that. There's another way of doing it, but you can't always do it, so I tend to stick with this one here. So I can click on those and I can click on those. So just click on either side and then I can drop it, then it appears in between. So that's covered us dimensions, chamfer dimensions, we've got hole callouts, and we've got center lines and center marks. Okay, so I've looked at simple blocks, simple layouts, putting dimensions and other annotations on them. What I want to do now is look at a more complicated, maybe an assembly, and how we can create a section view of this assembled object. So I've dropped that in already. I'm going to add another another view. I want my view to be the other way around, so my section is going to go through the thumb screw, so I need to rotate that one. Now if I put my cutting plane there, I'll get my section to the side of it. So I only need that view, so let's create that. And if I bring this up here, let's zoom in. How are we going to create a section? Well, select the view you want a section, hit section up here on the place views tab. Normally they go through a center, so you can see if we hover over it, it's picking up center points, so on the circle and on the midpoint of this line. So I want it to go vertically, so I'm going to start from the middle of this top edge. Don't click on the geometry itself, otherwise you limit yourself as to how you can arrange your labeling later. If you just move up from there, you'll see you get this dotted guideline that's telling you you're in line with that center point. So if I click there and I come down vertically, I should get in the right place. Click at the bottom, and now you've got options to keep clicking. So you could create stepped sections that go through your part in different planes. We don't want that, so we're going to right click, continue, and there is my view. You'll see, depending on which side you drop it, the arrows are changing. Over here, we can change our view identifier labels. We can change the scale if you want. I'm going to leave that with the parent one. Full depth is what I need, rather than just a little bit. So that's what I need to do for now. There's more complicated options when we're doing more involved sections, but for a simple section, that's all we need. Go to where you want to and click. So we've got our labels here, which we can now move a bit further to get them away from the geometry. If I'd selected right on the edge, these would be locked, and in fact the labels would be within the shape. So make sure you do the way I showed you there. If you want to change any of this, I'm going to move this underneath and change the name of this view. Don't delete it and replace it with text. This is linked, so you saw when I changed the view there. So when I change that from B to A, this is also changed from B to A. So these are actual sort of parameters within the drawing space. So if you want to change it, edit the view label by right clicking on it. When you've got something like this that's greyed out, it's a linked sort of feature. So don't get rid of it. I'm going to get rid of the scale one though, because I don't want to have scale in my title. And I'm going to add some text over here. That's going to say sectional elevation space. Okay, so I can drop that in there, and I can add another label here, which would be end elevation. You'll notice that the font's different sizes. I think that one there is looking a bit big. So again, if I edit that, if I select the text, I can change that. Again, if you try and change the size without selecting the text, nothing happens. You have to select it. Okay, so I need to obviously add some center marks, center lines and things on there, but that is basically how you're going to create a section through a view. This view was an assembled part. You could equally do it if it was just a single part object as well. Just one extra note on sections here. You'll see that Inventor, and in fact most CAD packages, don't really do sections properly. These two objects here, this thumb screw and this bolt here would not normally be sectioned. Also, the way that the thread here is displayed is also not correct to the British standards. There's not a lot you can do about it. You can right click on the hatching, and you can hide the hatching on those parts. Doesn't really solve it. If you really needed to fiddle it, you'd have to open this drawing in say Draw Plus or another editing package and mess around with the lines so that it actually comes out right. You could move that one back, for example. Just a note to remember that it isn't actually correct, but it's the best we've got. Okay, so there's a few more parts now I've added to this drawing. I've got a stock part here, and I've got a stem part which I'm just kind of creating. So a few things I want to show you. Firstly, on this one here, two things. I've obviously added my chamfer in here. I need to put some information about the size of this part here, and I feel it's going to be a little bit difficult to see that if I put it on the actual drawing. So sometimes you've got details in a drawing. If you try and dimension them, it's going to get really messy. So what we can do is we can create a detailed view. So if I've selected the view that I'm going to put the detailed view on, select detail up here, and then all I do is I need to click somewhere in the middle of where I want the bit of the detailed view to be, and then drag it up and then place it. Now you'll see here I've got options to change it. I think I'm going to change that to B because that's the second one I've got. You can make this scale if you like. You can have it bigger or smaller. You can change the shape of the cutout as well. I'm just going to leave it like that, and you can either click OK or you can drop it in. Okay, that's probably a bit big, so let's edit that and change the view back to 2:1. Okay, that's better. So you can see now I've got that bit there has been enlarged. You can move this if you need to move it. You can drag these in or out if you want to get a tighter or bigger, wider view. And now on there I can now add some dimensions if I want to maybe show what the dimension of this step is. Okay, the label, you can move that, you can edit the label, you can give it a name or what have you. Okay, so I've now got a detailed view here, which is going to make it easier for me to see this detail. I want to put I need a center line is missing off here. Previously I showed you how to use the bisector one. Now if I try to use that one now, my line is only going to go across that bit because I've not got an edge all the way along. So instead I'm going to use this one, which allows me to select the midpoint at the end and the midpoint at this end. Okay, you can see it's going through. You then need to go right click and create in order to actually make it appear. If you don't do that, it just disappears. One last thing on here just to note as well, for a dimension I want to put a dimension on this size here. That's coming out at 25, but that's actually a diameter, that's a cylinder. So what I want to do is edit that dimension. So right click, I'll just OK that minute, right click and edit. And what I need to do actually is I want to go in front of the dimension, so that stuff in red, that is calling the dimension of that part. If I move my cursor in front of it, I'm going to add the diameter symbol, and then that gives me a diameter of 25. Okay, another thing on here that we need to look at is this hole, which is actually a threaded hole. If I just try and dimension it, it's going to give me a radius of 2. It's not much use. What I need to do instead is use the hole and thread note, which I did before. This time it's going to pick up the fact that that is actually a threaded hole. It's going to be an M6 by 1. It gives us an extra sort of thread classification here, which I tend to remove because I'm not that bothered by. That is a detail of the thread. That there is the hole. Again, if you knew the depth of the hole, you could add a depth symbol, and you could add the hole depth there, and that would instead give you an M6 by 13 down. Okay, so that is detailed views. That is adding symbols to dimensions, and that is hole callout. There's another hole callout here on this part, which is quite a big part. We'll maybe have a look at why that's so big. So I've got a diameter, I've got a thread callout. This one's a bit different because there's actually a chamfer, as you'll see in a minute. So it's recognised as a chamfer, then there's a threaded hole. So it's giving that information of how big the chamfer is, and also how big the thread as well. Again, if we wanted to edit that, we could, if we wanted to replace that with the depth. and so that's a symbol, and then this is the actual calls the depth of the hole. You can also add something called a tap drill, which probably you won't need in for your graphics. It's more what you might need in a workshop. So I just cancel that and leave it as it is. Now this stem part here, I'm going to show you another feature of sorry, it's not a place, it's a projected view. Another feature we sometimes need to use in drawings, which is to break the view. So this is a round part. I want it to be quite big because I want to be able to see the detail, possibly not quite that big. I'm just going to create that in a minute. Let's just take that down a fraction. So it's 4 to 1, let's make it 2 to 1. That's more sensible. Okay, so I've got now 2 to 1, but my elevation, because it's a long skinny part, is going to come off the end of the page, and I want to be able to put a dimension for the chamfer at the end. How am I going to fit that on? Well, that's where we use the break. So if I click on the view and I go to the break button, I just tend to leave these defaults as they are. What you need to do is to click once near one end and then once near the other end, and what the software will do is it remove everything between those two lines, and you'll then be able to fit it on. So if I put dimensions on, it's still going to dimension as the whole thing, which is 150, but it's just not showing us that center part. This one here would benefit, I think, from having hidden view. So we can see there you can see the chamfer. So I need to put also a center line, middle, right click, create, and I've also got a chamfer 2-dimension there. Okay, which I'll need to move a bit so it doesn't come off the border. So quite a lot covered there. Detailed views, editing dimensions, whole notes, and also breaking views. Okay, I just want to add 2 more points to do with dimensions. The first of them is tolerancing. So tolerancing, as you'll know, is how much leeway we give a size. So if someone's going to be making this block and they're machining this hole here at 25, how much bigger than 25 or how much smaller than 25 can it be for it still to be okay? So sometimes we need to add that information on a drawing. And the way we do that, we right click the dimension, and we're going to go to edit, and you have got a couple of tabs here. Most of the time we've got this one up, that's where we're actually writing a dimension, and we can add other things, other symbols. If we come to the second one here, we've got precision and tolerances. So this tells us the primary unit, which is how many decimal points our measurement has. So at the moment, normally it's got none, but that's now got 1, so we can change the primary unit there. This here is a different type of tolerance. So usually we're talking about symmetric, which means it's going to show you a plus or a minus. You may have other ones which you can play with depending on what your drawing is, but usually we're just going to pop this one in, and let's say we're going to make that 0.2 millimeters of tolerance, so it can be above or below. If I change that, you'll see now my dimension line has got the tolerance added. You would be given the tolerance if you were to be applying it, but that is how you go about adding it to a dimension. Okay, the second thing which is related to that is its precision. So how precise is the dimension that is listed? All these ones on this drawing are all got no decimal places. So if I was to put a dimension here, it would tell me that this line is 20. I know actually that is 19.5, but it's not showing as 19.5 because the precision is set to have no decimal places. If I was to right click on that and go to precision, I can then change that. So now it says 19.5. Now the version of the template you've got should actually come up so that all your numbers appear with a 0.0, or in this case it'd be a 0.5, so you can see whether or not something's accurate. It's useful if you had maybe an unusual size and you were putting it on and it was lots of decimal places. You could right click on it and you could just tidy it up using that one there. So tolerances and precision.